Brothers, Organic Brothers. They're going to be serving all of us in the restaurant.
That
So,
sounds like Twisted Tea. Isn't that what we
it
do?
sounds like some things Twisted Olive does are local. I don't love the owner.
Is it Fourth Street or Third Street or Side Street or?
It's Fourth Street.
I got it.
We're going to call the August 24th meeting to order and ask us to rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would note for the record that the mayor is absent, although I was told he was watching us, the stream, and I would also note for the record that Ms. Johnson is not feeling well and she's going to be absent. First item on the agenda, as usual, are the minutes of the prior meeting, in this case August 1st. They've been disseminated. Are there any additions or corrections?
I don't know if I'm correct in this, but I don't think Mr. Roof was at the last meeting.
I was not.
Okay, so they have him present.
That's one I missed. That's one I missed.
It was Mr. Roof that.
It was a switch
I think-
last year.
I think you
Last
guys
time
got
you said
me
it was-
confused.
I thought he was at the last meeting.
I thought he was.
No, there was only
Because he was voting as here. All right, he was continuously voting as here.
We should really get video or something so we can check these things.
The one that I picked up on, it was Mr. Trable was not mentioned at all in the attendance. I would note for the record, Mr. Trable came late. And are there any others? All right, so we're going to amend Mr. Roof not being, as being absent, and we're going to delete his votes on all of the motions, because he was not present. And we are going to reflect that Mr. Trable was late. Other than that, are there any other additions, changes, or corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes
So moved.
as amended. It would be Ms. Jordan. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Trable, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
And Mr. Rook will
I'm
abstain.
abstaining as well.
And Ms. Graham would be abstaining. Ayes have it, so ordered. Next item on the agenda will be privilege of the floor. We have a very special guest tonight who signed the book. Mike, you got to go over there and speak into the microphone, please.
Over here? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're gonna need your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Mike Yarosek. My address is 630 Lackawacky Ave. I'm the president of Fountain Hill Little League. Yeah, continue.
All good.
Okay. Reason for today is we've had some vandalism at the Little League fields. There's graffiti on the back press box. We just recently painted all the buildings last year by the field, the main Little League field that's on Spiegel Street, I should say, the 1401 Spiegel Street. Behind that there is vandalism. Looks like the same writing that's across the street at the VIA, the old VIA building. Last week we had a over $400 pitching screen demolished, vandalized, into pieces. Pictures, it was in the fencing, on top of the dugout, just completely into pieces. A police report was made for that one. A few years back, we had cinder blocks thrown through the batting cage net. This past week, I put up new batting cage nets. I'd like to petition to possibly have some type of surveillance cameras installed at the Little League fields, just to protect the field itself and hopefully deter any vandalism.
Anything else you wish to say?
No, sir.
All right, I could say that I don't believe they're budgeted for this year. We're gonna be starting our budget our budget sessions in October. I promise you, they will be on the list to at least discuss. The budget meetings will be committees of the whole, I would assume, like we have in past years, and you're welcome to attend. There's no public comment, but if we have any questions, you being here to help answer them may be helpful.
You let me know when and I will absolutely attend.
We'll do our best.
110%.
Yeah, we'll make sure they're advertised. In the
Check the
meanwhile,
website also.
if council would, and Facebook. In the meanwhile, if council's okay with it, I'll reach out to our vendor that's done the installations here and at the playground, and at least put the idea in his head so he can get us a ballpark idea for budgetary purposes.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Now, you're welcome to stay, or you can leave, as
I
I
got
said.
kids on the field right now, so.
We understand.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for coming. And this is another chance to plug your fall league. When does that start?
We stopped signups already.
We stopped signups. I'm looking for attendance.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. It
We
starts.
have a game tomorrow at 5:30 at the 1401 Spiegel, the 11 and 12 will play.
For all of you in the audience and all of you out on Facebook, you're more than welcome to see our children in action. Thank you, Mike. All right, there are no resolutions, there are no ordinances. Old business, the playground is wrapping up Friday night.
Correct. This week is Spirit Week. We put out a schedule on both the website and on Facebook. They've themed each of the evenings. Due to some of our employees have gone back to school already, and some of them are all related, and they unfortunately had a death in the family, so tomorrow morning is the funeral for that family member, so that the playground will be closed for the morning session only tomorrow on Thursday. But they will be back in the evening. And again, as you alluded to, it wraps up Friday. It's been a great season, and we'll hopefully ride that momentum in the next year.
I wasn't up there as often as I probably should have been, but my granddaughter and I were up there at least twice, and it was refreshing to see the counselors interact with the children and get involved, and it was refreshing to see the children there. They were there in I thought, good numbers, and that was really refreshing. I would also note that I thought that the spray went well, the fire truck spray.
I got a nice sunburn on the top of my head.
All right, Jeter Avenue, is that done?
Jeter is done. There's a small punch list. We, Jason, myself, and the borough engineer walked it the other day. So we'll get those addressed with the contractor, but it's open and smooth and it looks very nice.
I would imagine the residents are happy to have their street back and be able to park in front of their house and not take the trash 2 blocks in any direction.
They are the couple weeks.
This is a good thing.
Yeah,
All right,
very
and it was in time, right? It was done within the time frame?
It was, yes.
Perfect. All right, next item of old business, Warren, Moravia, and Lynn Street paving update.
So this year we had budgeted in the capital plan for Warren, and if you remember the total reconstruction of Sioux Street, due to cost overruns on, actually Warren came in at budget, but Jeter and the TASA grant and Delaware's microsurfacing that's forthcoming, we decided to cancel Sioux Street, which left us some money in the road improvement capital account. UGI was doing half of Lynn Street as part of their deal for excavating the street for service, so we were able to get 3 quotes quickly. Their contractor came in the lowest to finish the other half of it, so Mrs. Jordan has a nicely paved street curb to curve.
Yes, and on behalf of all the residents of South Lynn Street, thank you.
Yeah, it seemed to be the right thing to do, and again, we were fortunate that we had the money there, and it was a deal too good to pass up to get the whole street done. And while the same contractor who they used for the UGI Great Western project was our low bidder on Warren Street, we saved on all of that mobilization cost and were able to change order Warren Street to incorporate the block of Moravia Street behind the school that so desperately needed it. So we were able to accomplish all 3 streets at a very, very affordable cost to the borough. So those are all done. Again, minor punch list items were corrected this week. So, and I think all the residents are very happy. And Warren, if you get the chance to go see it, was a very, very interesting project due to the grade in the slope. The contractor told us it was probably the most difficult street they did, and I think they did a fantastic job. And all of the residents there were afforded access throughout the project. So
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that because that is a very difficult street. That's very steep.
And I have to say, when we dealt with UGI earlier in the spring and now, I have to just say how very courteous and considerate they were for all of the residents. I mean, they really went out of their way to explain anything and to talk to us and to move if they had to move. They were very considerate of me. I mean, I tried not to go anywhere when they were there, but just in general, the street was very grateful for that.
And I know everyone's frustrated just because of the volume of work. Obviously, we're getting a lot done, but the good news is that, especially Broadway, once this is done, we're probably for the long foreseeable future, that'll be the last of the work, at least for that utility. So that is good news.
Speaking of Broadway, do we have any update from PennDOT when they expect to start?
PennDOT's going to be paving in spring, although we haven't heard it officially, but that is the final thing, which is good because otherwise we're going to saw cut their road when we put our curb in, because our bid comes down on Friday. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to go back and destroy PennDOT's brand new road. So it actually is the best thing. And again, Great Western is still not finished. They're projecting the end of the month. So PennDOT's timeline was very ambitious from the start, is probably the most conservative way I can put that. So we're looking at spring for everything done, including our curb project, which includes the stormwater upgrades as well in that scope of work.
Great. Next item of old business is the school donation request for the food bank. Is that the swap for in lieu of the waiver of the fees?
Correct. So one of the things when Ms. Hoffman was here was they talked about that they were soliciting donations, and one suggestion was the waiver of those fees. The $3,000 amount exceeds what the fees are, but that is what they have requested. Again, it's council's discretion. We also, I know, had talked about formalizing a process, which Mr. Berger and I could do via resolution, and have it on the agenda as early as the September meeting. I don't know what the school district's timeline is for this donation, so I guess there's the reason for putting it on here is, again, they've formalized a request. We could still move forward with defining a formal process, but at council's discretion, grant this request, or we can define a formal process. If that process requires some more information from the school district, we'll go back to Ms. Hoffman and say, I need you to do this as part of our new formal process, and then consider it.
When you say formal process, you mean a policy as to under what circumstances we would consider a fee waiver or a donation in lieu of a fee waiver?
Just a general donation to a non-for-profit. I mean, it doesn't need to be tied to any 501c3 could receive a donation from the municipality, regardless of whether or not we're charging them for, building permit fees or whatnot. So a local community group could come to a council and say, we would like to request a donation for $1,000, and that's permissible within all of the municipal codes and statutes in the state. Some boroughs, Paoli being one that we found that's probably the most robust, has a policy that says you will provide council with items A through E in your request if you're a qualifying agency, and then it's for amounts over like $300 or something like that.
And would there be a cap then, obviously?
No, I mean, honestly, that's for you all to decide. I mean, I think that's kind of, certainly there's none statutorily because certain municipalities can afford a lot more than others. So.
Absolutely. All right, well, we'll wait for you and Mr. Berger to work on that. There's no action tonight.
No. I just wanted, again, we received the request that was distributed in your packet, and since she was here to make the presentation. So we'll go ahead and formalize a process and a draft resolution then to approve that process, and we could take comment at that first meeting in September, if that's okay with everyone.
Fine with me. All right, last item of old business, public notifications system discussion. You all received, I think there were 3 quotes in your packet, and then you were going to get another one today, I believe.
I did. So I got the 4th one today. As you can see, there's a wide spacing between the quotes. So as low as $775 for a product that is a sister company to the vendor, the software vendor that we use for our garbage and sewer billing. That program is very nice. The garbage and sewer billing, that is. I would say that their alert system is probably the one I like the least. But again, everything comes with a cost to it. So the one I demoed yesterday and got the quote today is probably the most robust. That is probably overkill for us, and that was also the most expensive at $4,000. The one that I think is probably the best bang for your buck, but still a bit expensive, is the Nixle at $2,900, which is what Lower Saucon uses, and many of you get the Lower Saucon alerts. The product that that public alert product at $775, that will accomplish the basic things that we're looking for. There are some limitations to it. One of the things that I really don't like about it is so in theory, it's a good thing it ties into the same database that our garbage and sewer billing uses. The issue with that is that everyone who's a tenant then also needs to be alternatively enrolled, because unless you're the one paying the garbage and sewer billing, you aren't going to get the alert. That said, most of these other companies, actually all of the others that you saw the quotes from, offer a self-service portal. So you go online to a website, the keyword is Fountain Hill, PA or something, and you sign up. You pick what alerts you want, it dumps you into the database. There is zero work that needs to be done on the back end by any of the staff here. The product, the cheaper product, there's a portal, but ultimately what it does is it sends an email to someone here who then goes into the database and enters it. The other thing when you do the self-service is those folks can then opt out. So if I'm a renter, I move into the borough, I want alerts. I forget to go on the website and I get an alert 6 months after I leave. I text stop and it disenrolls me from the borough's account. Nixle also affords the ability to go in and draw a radius on a map or a polygon on a map around an area if it's just an area that's affected. The cheaper product allows us to pick by street, so there is some capabilities there. The Nixle product is unlimited, and I'll keep referencing Nixle because I think that's really the only one that's in the ballpark of affordability. That's a competitor to the public alert product. Nixle is unlimited alerts. The public alert product you get, it's a pretty high amount of alerts. It's like 6,000 alerts. But an alert is every time a phone gets a text message or a voice call. So if you have 500 people enrolled, that sounds like a lot, but it could tick off fast. Again, the wild card here is what the amount of enrollment we get determines, I think, the value of the product to the community. So, at $2,900, or I think that's what it off the top of my head without just pulling it up here, but for Nixle, that is a pretty significant investment, and if 400 people use it, we probably are going to be here next year discussing whether or not it's worth it for the next budget year. But the downside to picking something that is cheaper but less featured is if we do get a really good enrollment and we decide that this isn't the best at fulfilling our needs and we want to go to something else, now you've got to tell all these 1,000 people that enrolled in one program that we're switching alerting systems. So in my mind, the $2,900 sounds like a lot, but I think if it's something we're going to try for next year, I would sooner try something that is fulfills all of our needs, is easy enough for any of the staff here to use, including the clerks. They can have different logins. The police chief would be able to send police alerts, those types of things. It also interfaces with Facebook, so instead of sending an alert and then having to make a Facebook post, it'll push it to Facebook. If we have a Twitter page, not that I'm looking for any more work, but all of those things, it would push that out. And it also includes the Nixle 360 product includes the voice dialing. So for all of our residents who may want an old-fashioned phone call or don't have a cell phone or email, they would still be able to get that phone notification at home. So we don't need a decision tonight. I think we're pretty much at this point looking at, as we go into the budget process, making those investments. But those are my thoughts between the two products that I think are really the most, or what the decision should be between.
We had Nixle before. And
Free version.
Was that the free version? And I remember that I didn't even know anything about it until I got into council. So I think whatever we decide on, we really need to roll that out for everybody to know what's
And that's where, I think we make the free version is like, it was limited in the amount of alerts. There's not a whole lot of functionality. I think when we look at this, we can do, there's a number of ways to get the message out, including putting it on garbage bills. you know, we can still have the folks call in who maybe aren't as adept at using the self-service portal or don't have a computer at home, but you can come to the window and say, hey, I'd like to enroll in this, or we'll put a flyer up there that says, we'd like to enroll, you know, ask us and we'll enroll you, and then you can get phone calls at home. It's going to have to be, any system we pick is, you're right, it's going to have to be the communication, and I think now with our community coalition pushing marketing, we can enlist their help as well.
I think if we could have one, let's say we did go with one, sorry.
Let's say we did go with one of these guys. I think it's one of those things that we could work with people in our community, like Wawa, like Lorenzo's, you know, and like, hey, can you put up a QR code for us? Scan it with your phone, it takes you right to the thing, and you're done. You know, anyone with an iPhone would just need to take a picture of it, and they're done. You know,
And I
sign up.
And I think too that the other thing is, you know, the Nixle, the free version before was used by, like, Officer Wood was the only one like putting out stuff for the police department. I think as Mr. Roof alluded to, you use your community partners to post this stuff. Craig at Wawa will do it. I know Frank will at Lorenzo's. And then you start using it to say, hey, the trash hauler had a vehicle issue today, and if your trash wasn't picked up, it'll be picked up tomorrow. Or reminder, it's because of the snow day, they're running a day behind. And then neighbors start talking and saying, oh yeah, I got a phone call from the borough that said that. Oh, how did you sign up for that? And that'll help. As you use it more, I think people will realize that there's a value in buying into it and then listening to it. So at least my hope is, because
I think it will.
In other words, you and people who are just regular telephone, can't call on the phone.
yeah, so I could record my voice if you'd like to hear me. But they do have a text to speech feature, and the one thing that Nixle includes that the cheaper product is not, is a cheaper product I can send a message in Spanish. However, that means it goes to everybody in Spanish. So you pick who you want your message to go out to. When you opt in using the portal, the self-service sign-up portal for Nixle, you pick what your desired language is. So when it decides that, you know, Mrs. Jordan's going to get her message on her landline in English, but another resident who had enrolled in Spanish gets a translated version of that, I think for our demographic here is a very valuable addition that you get with the higher pros.
It's like anything else, you just get what you pay for.
Now you recommending Nixle, right?
I am. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The one I saw today or yesterday, that's $4,000. I mean, that's like the Cadillac. That does all kinds of neat stuff, but it's overkill. The Rave product is comparable with Nixle as far as features. I would be okay with either one of them, but that Nixle 360 is out of the what I'll call the higher end full featured options. The Nixle is the most affordable out of those that we looked at. And then again, like I said, there is the option of the $775 for if we had a different rental versus owner ratio here. I could see a little bit more value in taking a chance on going cheaper and tapping into our existing database. But I think what we're going to end up with is trying to change contact information for alerts for, you know, almost 50% of our residents, and it's going to turn into, and then we're in the same database, and that's also what worries me. Like, I almost want to, we can export our database from our system now into a CSV file and upload it into Nixle. But then whatever changes we make stay separate in the alerting system where the other product uses the same database.
Is there also the opportunity, I mean, with Nixle, there's not a maximum number of alerts or users, is there?
So it is household based. So the price is based on our households in the borough here. So,
But we're not going to be looking at 100% utilization. So I'm thinking about people who live on the cusp, you know, that could use this very easily, you know, for things like snow emergencies and, you know.
absolutely. I mean, I get Lower Sawkins here. So it like you said, I mean, we're looking at a max. We're quoted at a high estimate that we probably will not see at 1,800 households. So yes, other folks that do neighboring, and then as far as alerts, no, it's unlimited alerts, including the voice alerts. So that's where a lot of them tag you is if you want the voice, that's an added expense.
Cool.
And are there any other questions for Mr. Gretz? All right, that can go on the agenda for September, or is this a budget item that we have to talk about?
I mean, so obviously there is, unappropriated balance, it's $2,900. My recommendation, so we could do it sooner. My recommendation is that we go through the budget process. If we agree on it, I can start the rollout process with the product in December. So we can go live in January, and the payment is net 30. So we wouldn't have to, if we started in December, we wouldn't have to pay until 2023.
All right, is this something we want to continue to explore?
Actually, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
I noticed that there's an expiration for the quote. Is that a hard stop?
No, we're okay. They're good through the end of the year. So like I said, if we sign in December, would prevent us from everyone guarantees it pretty much. You're right, they put the 30 days on there, but everyone is guaranteed it through 2022 pricing.
Okay, good.
So, yep.
This is always a good thing. All right, moving on, discussion items, new business. The Community Coalition, Mr. Zofko wants to use our pavilion on September 10th, and I believe wants Jason available to open and close the bathrooms.
Well, and he also offered if we want to entrust him with the key as to not incur overtime and or Jason, he would open and secure the restrooms, which, I mean, I don't necessarily, I think it's probably a better option than if Mr. Quarry's not available to ask him to come in or to ask him to come in on a weekend or to pay Public Works the overtime.
I have a key to that, and I'd be happy to walk down and open it up and close it when they're done.
Oh, there we go. So,
Excuse me, doesn't,
Go ahead.
I may be wrong, but doesn't the mayor have a key? He lives across the street? I mean, I don't know if the mayor has a key to that.
I don't know if he does either.
oh, we could ask,
But
that'd be a question for Mr. Quarry. He had an event with his kids,
Yeah,
but
you
I'll
could-
give
you
him an
could
answer.
You could just,
I mean, if everyone's okay with them using it, I think we'll figure out the
yeah,
logistics and the
we don't need to
discretion.
bring
No, I know,
Jason in on his day
no.
off.
And
Okay.
does anybody object to Mr. Zofko and his coalition using the pavilion? Okay.
The only other thing I want to discuss in relation to that is, Mr. Zofko had stated that if someone from Public Works is available, like just to join in their discussions. I think one of the things, and I kind of spoke to Ms. Johnson last night after our police committee meeting, is how do we want to, or how does council really want to handle as far as we start working towards, and they have questions as to certain aspects of operations, or they have questions for different borough employees. Obviously, Mr. Quarry has the most amount of insight to any technical questions on the poll. What I do want to prevent is a mixed sending of information and a mixed message, and that is not, we do something inadvertently that is not kind of within the confines of what council's wishes are for us as they continue to feel out their process. I don't want to tell him, no, I don't want to help you, or we're not going to have Jason available to talk to you, but I don't want Jason kind of getting inadvertently
Overwhelmed.
or
Pull in.
exactly, and that's it. Unintentionally, just kind of roped into
Not that
his reins or
anybody's
something.
trying to do anything
No.
damaging, but that's the way that, and I've said that from the beginning, that it's a wonderful thing, and I'm so supportive of it, but you have to just remember that there's a fine line, and you can't have the borough employees be considered a part of that group. Well, like, it's, for instance, when they have a good idea, it's one thing to come and ask us what we think about it, but it's another thing to just try to incorporate like Jason's expertise on everything, or just to think he's going to be there or at all times. It's just a fine line, and we have to just be very careful of it, that we don't have the coalition thinking that they, and I know you're listening, Mike, and I love you, I'm just trying to keep this the way it should be. It needs in certain ways to be separate, always separate between the employees and the coalition.
I agree with that, and I also think there should only be one or two people who are authorized to speak with Mr. Zofko about his concerns. We don't want him going up to any employee.
Yes,
I think it should be Eric and Jason.
Yes.
And that would be it.
yes.
And I think anything that, obviously they've got a lot of great ideas. And I think
I wish them well.
But I mean, and some of them involve, the fire department, we link them together, and I wore that hat that night. But as these ideas evolve, and they may need either, permissions for borough facilities or assistance from borough employees to make some of these things come to fruition, You know, the initial discussion, I kind of shepherded his group when they wanted to meet with me towards a recreation committee meeting. You know, is that a direction we want to continue to go when they're looking at stuff, is start at that committee, or
Well, I
do
would
we
think,
recommend they come to council and speak to council as well?
well, I would think everything would end up with the recreation committee based upon what he wants to do. I think most of this stuff would be a council decision, if he wants to use the park, if he wants to use the pool, the upper field, or wherever.
Again,
Well,
I mean,
I
I'm
think-
just thinking more of those informal discussions, and that was more what it was. They just wanted to meet with me to bounce some ideas off me, and I said, look, I would prefer to do this with the Recreation Committee of Council there, just so, again, I'm not giving unintentional false hope or the wrong answer that's not within the wishes of what council wants to see.
I could,
On some items, I think council needs to hear all of it. Council needs to hear it. I mean, it's fine, recreation committee, but I think there are gonna be times when certain ideas they have or certain requests they have, I think council should hear the full presentation. I mean, I have I know the recreation committee does what they do well, but I think sometimes maybe it might get lost in translation. And I'm talking about a major thing. I'm not talking about little ideas that everybody has, but sometimes, you know, depending on what the idea is or the scope of it, I think when it's presented, possibly that should be presented to a full council as opposed to recreation.
Well, and I would continue to do what we've done here, where like this, even something as simple as a pavilion use request, that, you know, we don't need a motion, but I continue to put it on the agenda for the full body.
Right.
I think more what I'm looking at is to say, like, look, all right, Jason's not gonna come on the 10th, but if a certain select officers of your group would like to meet and ask whatever those technical questions are, can we set up a meeting here at Borough Hall?
Monday to
instead of-
Friday, when Jason's working.
But I'm also thinking who from, like I said, I'm looking at council ultimately is dictating the direction this is gonna go, and I don't want us to agree to anything that does not align with the wishes of council.
Right.
Which is why I wanted the recreation committee here, because what Eric thinks doesn't necessarily matter when it's not in line with what the 7 of you all think. So that's where I'm at with, not that Jason would intentionally do anything, or would intentionally do anything, but if we answer a very pointed question and I don't want to have a meeting and then go, we've checked with council, we've checked with
I think
council.
if somehow it's interpreted incorrectly, and then it goes on Facebook, or when they have a post, or it goes on email, and all of a sudden, this idea sounds like it's going to happen, and it's certainly not in line with what council, it's going to be a tricky walk on this. But-
Well, and that's exactly why I wanted to discuss it tonight, is not to make anybody's life any more difficult, but we're coming into budget season, and we're gonna have some hard decisions about how much we're investing moving forward towards next year based on, you know, what their goals and the progress has been and what we need to do. And I wanna make sure that whatever we're communicating aligns with the ideals of you all that are sitting up here. So that's why I suggested, like, if those types of things, the decisions need to come to the full body, but when we have discussions, it would be more comfortable for me to have at least members of, whether it's the rec committee or whatever committee we decide, we have some council representation there to kind of say, no, Eric, that's not at all what we're doing. Oh, okay, because we all have our own interpretations and can make mistakes. And like I said, I want to eliminate that. We say one thing, it goes out on Facebook, and then we have to walk it back because, well, that's not what I meant. I made a mistake. So that's my only thing. It's just to streamline communication, because they're doing a great job of getting the message out to a lot of people. But I want that message to be,
Correct.
yes, and not something that goes with the borough goes, oh, well, we didn't mean that. So.
Any other discussion on that issue? Hearing none. School traffic pattern up in Moravia Street, that worked out well, I thought.
We had one concern from one single resident last year.
Would
And
that be our former mayor?
yes.
How did I know
We
that?
all do that.
How did I know that?
And honestly, some of her concerns towards as it went weren't really with traffic. It was the school district's sort of forgetfulness with retrieving the sign, which I mean I think is a
And
legitimate
that's a
thing.
legitimate concern, yes.
But I also understand that like it certainly wasn't enough that I thought, you know, I would remind Garrett up there via email, like, hey, look, you got to pull the sign in. But I think by and large, we've really thought it worked out very well. The police department thought it worked out well. And with Moravia now being ultra smooth and very nice to drive on, I think it does help with some of the traffic speeds up there as we move into the school year. So.
I would agree, and again, I would remind everybody, the safety of the children is paramount.
And we're still looking for a crossing guard for everyone watching. If anyone would like to work, you can apply on our website.
Does that need a formal motion in September?
Well, school starts before that,
I
so
don't think so, not this year.
It starts Monday.
Oh, okay, I was
Yeah.
wrong, that's what I thought.
that's why we're closing the program on Park Playground Program on Friday. So certainly, we could make a motion on that. We had a motion last year, and I believe it expired at the end of the school year without looking back. So if
All right,
Make a
is that
motion.
something that we can do tonight,
Yeah.
or is that, okay, anybody want to make a motion to approve their request to duplicate the school, or the traffic pattern that we approved for the second half of the school year?
So moved?
Ms. Jordan, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Trable, we're gonna go in order, Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Ruff?
Yes.
Mr. Trotter? Mr. Trable?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
And I say yes, let's do it. I think it worked. All right, council action items, motion to transfer $1,500 from a pool maintenance account to parks maintenance for the removal of 3 large dead trees in Lackawacky Springs Park. Now, this was on the amended agenda, we had nothing on the packet.
correct. So we had this past weekend we had a rather large dead tree fall in Lackawacky. Public Works removed it on Monday and Tuesday. There are 3 other trees up there that are probably 100 feet tall that are also in danger of doing the same. We were fortunate this one fell into the stone lot up there and did not cause any damage. And luckily no one was under it when it fell. It's outside the scope of our Public Works, but that the quote we got was $1,200, so we made it $1,500 just to have some buffer room there. And that's with our Public Works staff assisting the tree crew to take down those 3 trees. So we have plenty of money in a number of the pole maintenance accounts. We have the general one, and then we have the one we allocated for the $50,000 of repairs. We've touched none of that this year, so we're just looking to move a small portion of that into the parks maintenance account to accomplish this.
Does that have to be done tonight?
What's it?
Does that have to be done tonight
To
transfer the money, or are you looking for a motion?
yeah. This would be a motion.
Is there a motion to approve the transfer of $1,500 from one, okay, Mr. Trotter, is there a second? Mr. Trabo, any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Ruff,
Yes.
Mr. Trotter, Mr. Trabo,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
and I say yes. Let's do it.
All right, we'll get it scheduled ASAP.
All right, privilege of the floor, to the members of our audience, anybody wish to address council? I have to say it. Hearing none. All right, we are going to go to a very brief executive session. It's anticipated to discuss a personnel item. It's anticipated that it won't take very long at all, just to bring council up to speed on a small problem, which I believe is being resolved. And we will not be coming back. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session. Mr. Trevor? Is there a second? Is there a
Second.
Mr. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, rather than go in there, Mrs. Blatt, would you exit, please? And shut the door behind you.
You sit in my office.
You can sit in Mr. Gratz's office.
Feel free to toss papers or whatever.
Feel